Welcome to the show, folks. It is Friday, and if you've made it this far, congratulations. The end of the week. I'm your host, Max Burns, and for the next half hour, we are digging into the biggest stories in the news today. We're breaking down the headlines behind the headlines and laughing through all the tears that Donald Trump has brought us. You can follow me on Twitter at @TheMaxBurns and follow us on Substack at Lincoln Square, on YouTube at Lincoln Square Media. As always, leave your questions during the show and your comments afterwards. I read them all, even though I shouldn't. We have a great show for you today. It is my pleasure and honor to be joined by the one and only Michelangelo Signorile. You know him from the Michelangelo Signorile show on Sirius XM Progress 127. And for once, I get to host him, which feels pretty great.
Yeah.
Mike, how you doing?
I'm doing great. This is great. Being on this side, being, the guy being asked the questions in a discussion with you. Terrific. Always great having you on my show, Max.
This is the only time Sirius lets me out during the day, so it's great to be able to see the sun. Now, for those of you watching, I wonder if you can tell me what's going on in this clip.
You give me, you know as well as I do. I mean, are you asking me if Josh Hawley's gay?
Yes.
Are you asking me if Stephen Miller's gay?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I really don't know.
Okay, let me tell you this.
Are you asking me if Speaker Johnson's gay?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
That was Hunter Biden appearing on Don Lemon's podcast and saying some stuff that in any normal world might get him sued. But hey, it's 2026, so anything goes. Now, Hunter going nuclear on whether Republicans are gay is not one of our top 5 stories this week. Shows you how crazy the news cycle was. But this one is. Pete Hegseth, the former Fox News meathead and current defense secretary, was visited Capitol Hill this week for a hearing that can only be described as not great. Here's Michigan Senator Gary Peters welcoming Hegseth to the Hill.
Because I use the word failure to their leaders. You, sir, are the failure, not the men and women who are on that front line, not the men and women who hold up their honor with distinction. But if there's a lack of a winning strategy, they're in harm's way. Their leaders have failed them. And that's what's happening. We have political leadership. You don't have a strategy. You don't have a long-term plan to actually win this war. Win the war. The men and women are going to be able to do it, but they need to have leadership. When will you show leadership? When will you show leadership? Why don't you show some?
Yeah, Gary Peters, why don't you run the Department of Defense instead? And that wasn't the only person to call Pete Hegseth a failure. Republican Congressman Don Bacon also weighed in and said that. Hegseth facing heavy criticism from both sides after mishandling the Pentagon budget. He's now expanding the war in Iran. And the fact that old Petey doesn't seem to know what's actually going on in his own department. Now, Mike, Hegseth was visiting the Hill to get some money for the Pentagon. He wanted $67 billion more to pay for Iran on top of the $1.5 trillion he already got. Pete really seemed to think this was going to go well. What's your take?
It was interesting because he wasn't at the onset and even throughout the really, really wise ass Pete Hegseth. Like, he kind of knew that, to your point, he needed to somehow convince them he needed this money. He needed to be a little more serious. Of course, a little more serious for him is not anything that is remotely professional or makes the case, but he really was trying not to come off too wise ass. It was still coming out. And to get slammed by Republicans, even Senator Kennedy from Louisiana really pushing him as well, it just showed you that Republicans are losing a lot of patience with the administration. Does it mean they'll vote against, giving the money? Does it mean that they're going to decide to rein him in on the war? No, because they haven't yet. I mean, well, they did in one vote, but then we had another vote on the War Powers Resolution, and they failed to take control. So I don't know how much it really means, but it does show that they are getting very, very impatient. We're just 4 months from the election. They're worried.
Yeah. And Hegseth's big thing when he was confirmed was military readiness. We're going to make the military ready for anything. But here he is. He's asking for more money. He just announced that they want to move $4 billion from troop training and weapons training into the Iran War Fund because they're out of money because of they miscalculated the costs. I mean, it seems like under Hegseth, the morale is lower, the Pentagon is less ready than ever. I mean, are you seeing that as well?
It's clear that they don't have the money that they need. They've burned it through dramatically. They don't know where it's going from here. They really don't know what they're going to need. They haven't rethought how they use weapons. We are using weapons that cost billions of dollars, while Iran is using these drones that cost them nothing. They haven't figured out how to kind of do this without going through all of this, weaponry that costs billions of dollars. So that's a big problem. They also don't know what's going to happen in terms of the future. Trump is talking about ramping up and going, full scale into major combat operations. We've got medics going to the Army hospital in Germany. 150 of them were sent there, whether that was for the injuries that have already been incurred in the attack on the base in Jordan, or they're expecting more injuries. We don't know. So he doesn't even know what is happening and can't even ask them for something based on what will really happen. I think that's part of the problem here. The other part of the problem is, as you said about morale, the troops themselves, they have certainly not been prepared for this. They didn't prepare the American people. They didn't prepare voters. Trump didn't make the case on the war. It's doubtful that they really made the case to those who are serving as well. They don't know why they're there. They don't want to be there. This is a disaster all across the board in terms of both the American people and the troops.
And it's so much more than just Iran, too. People may not know the Pentagon runs one of the largest child care networks in the country. 172,000 kids are members of the Pentagon's child care program. The Pentagon now saying they don't have the money to fund 19,000 child care workers they're going to need to take care of those kids. So now you have even soldiers and families that are at home are starting to be affected by this. But I do want to talk more about Iran, because that is our fourth big story of the week. This feels like it's been a story every week. Time to change our sign again, because the war is officially back on, and Donald Trump is threatening to expand the scope of the war unless Iran surrenders. Stop me if you've heard this one before, Mike. Prominent Republicans are now saying it's time to wrap this disaster up. It's been a massive drain on American readiness, on our economy, including Speaker Mike Johnson and now Senator Rand Paul. Here was Rand Paul this week talking about why the Iran war is actually hurting America.
Threatens our country. The biggest threat we have right now is our debt. We are more in danger of devaluing our currency than we are of Iran invading the United States.
Well, the defense secretary testified that for national security, it is critical that they get the money that they are asking for. What would you say to someone that says the actual danger that the country is put in is if the Pentagon can't fund it?
I would say that he's mistaken the problem. The greatest threat to our national security is our debt. That's what Admiral Mullen said 10 years ago, and it's gotten 10 times worse.
Mike, I'm agreeing with Rand Paul. I may need some mental health care. What do you think of this whole debacle?
Well, Rand Paul is, the ultimate stopped clock, right? That's twice a day is right. He hits on it, right? He doesn't always vote the right way. He'll say all of this stuff and then he'll cave in. And then sometimes he does. Sometimes he's the one vote that, is standing up. I mean, he's telling the truth about the debt and the money and what we're talking about with regard to spending all of this money that we don't have, that we have squandered and that we are unable to use for programs in this country. We right now have, beyond the issue of, affordability and inflation and healthcare and all of these other issues, Donald Trump's tariff regime fell apart. The big bad bill, they had based part of it on paying for things through those tariffs. He's coming up with a whole new tariff scheme to try to make up the money. They realize that it's all fallen apart in terms of how they're going to bring in money. and they are overspending like crazy. I mean, these are the people who used to attack Democrats for spending money. Democrats at least always made sure they could pay for it when they spent money.
Yeah. And Donald Trump seems to be the only Republican who's not aware of how big a problem this is. He announced yesterday to Axios that he's weighing what he calls a massive attack against Iran, even as the price of oil has already topped $100 a barrel. Inflation, as you note, is starting to pick up again. I mean, Mike, didn't Trump promise us this would be a 2-week war?
He said 2 weeks, and then he said another 2 weeks, and then he said another 2 weeks, and then he said another 2 weeks. He also doesn't seem to see that there is no winning here. From the beginning, it was clear, as soon as the Strait of Hormuz was taken, that Iran had its nuclear weapon. That was it. They were going to use it. No amount of escalation of bombing, none of that is going to do anything. He's the one who said he wanted to protect the civilians of Iran. He was going to make sure they were, not being murdered anymore. He was going to liberate them in the beginning, right? And help them to overthrow. So is he now saying he's going to start killing the civilians? That's not going to really play well in the region. He's really stuck. This is a quagmire. It's going to go on for a long time. And he doesn't get it, that continued bombing is only going to make it worse.
Yeah. So how should Democrats be talking about this? We always say voters don't care as much about foreign policy. They care about what's at home. But this seems to be one of those conflicts that is making things worse at home. I mean, not just slowing the economy, but raising prices on everything.
I think Democrats have been hitting on that issue, and they now have even more ammunition because, to your point, Americans don't follow foreign policy, but they do when it connects to something that affects them in their everyday lives. And they've already seen that when the war escalated and when the strait was closed and when the price of oil skyrocketed, the price of gas skyrocketed. Then when we had the ceasefire, it actually came down a little bit. Oil stabilized and gas prices, they never went down to the $3 a gallon, but they came down below $4 a gallon. So Americans were able to see precisely what happened, the connection to the war. And now they saw oil surge again and the price of gas go up over $4 a gallon. I think for Democrats, that is like the ironclad proof of how the war is affecting you in your pocketbook, that you're going to buy gas and it's affecting all the groceries too. Anything that can't get through the Strait of Hormuz, fertilizer, all these other items, and then how it affects farming and everything else. All of it is affecting people in terms of their prices. And then he's ramping up tariffs again. So that one people really get as well. I mean, Democrats have a lot here to work with.
Yeah. I mean, as I always say, the best way to get people to vote for Democrats, just give them a couple years of Republicans in charge. I mean, we have a comment from General Putnam, 1775. He says, Republican administrations do this every single time. Then some competent Dem has to come in and clean up the mess. And that is exactly what's going to happen now. Right. And that actually leads us well into our third story, which is Democrats getting some good news finally. I don't say it very often, but they're actually seeming to make progress here. We talk a lot about how Republicans being unpopular isn't the same as Democrats being popular. But a bunch of new polls out now show that Democrats are surging in popularity across the board. That's including in states like Iowa, Ohio, and Georgia, where the numbers are really kind of mind-blowing. An AARP poll this week had Senator John Ossoff up 9 points against his Republican opponent. That's his best number to date. Democrat Keisha Lance Bottoms up 2 points in the race for governor. And Georgia House races trending 7 points towards Democrats. Mike, this tells me that not only are Democrats sort of getting through with their message, but voters are starting to pay attention and they're realizing Republicans just are not tuned into what's happening.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the generic ballot polling that was out this week, Fox News poll, right? Which I love when Fox does a poll because they have to report it on Fox. And they're telling their viewers, this is really bad. Democrats up 7 in their a generic ballot poll and up on all of these issues, including the economy and inflation. But then you look at the Emerson poll, right, which you're showing, an 11-point generic ballot lead.
Yeah.
That is like bigger than what we saw in 2018. Now, if that happens, great, but you don't even need that to happen. And all of the gerrymandering, the rigging, all this redistricting, none of it is going to save them. And to your point, this isn't just about people saying, okay, Democrats, I'd rather them than Republicans. This is about Republicans just being bad, but I don't like Democrats. You and I have talked about this on my show too. When people are polled about Democrats, they're really talking about the leadership and what they feel about the leadership and its strategy. When you look at the candidates, Democrats love their candidates. Democrats are getting behind candidates that have been really charismatic, really popular, winning on the affordability issue, and people have been getting out to the vote in huge numbers, not because they're voting necessarily just against Donald Trump, because they really like these candidates. And you see that from Mamdani to all of these other Senate candidates. You just mentioned John Ossoff. People really like him and the message. So I think that you're seeing happening too. People see them as leaders now.
And it is, to your point, not ideological. You have Zoran Mamdani, a Democratic socialist, Rob Sand in Iowa, who's working with farmers. You have John Ossoff, who has said exactly what you said, that Democrats can't just be an anti-Trump party. They have to paint a vision for the future. And it looks like Republicans now are the ones with the candidate quality problem. We have a poll out showing Donald Trump's approval at 34%, which blows through the conventional wisdom that his floor is about 38 points. Now he is just in free fall, and that tells us that both independents and Republicans are starting to really split from him.
Yeah, and if you look at the polling on just the war, and you see that, on MAGA, not even all Republicans, just MAGA, it is dismal for Donald Trump. It is like 30% support the war, and less. I mean, it is really bad. And 1 in 5 MAGA voters say the war has been a disaster and they wish that it would end right now. He can't even get the full support of his hardcore base that has supported the war throughout. That's a real problem.
Yeah, and to the point that you have these Republicans in the House and the Senate repeatedly bringing up war powers votes. They're failing. Republicans in the Senate blocked a war powers vote this week, but they keep coming up and they keep forcing Republicans to talk about this and vote on this war. And it really does seem like this war and Democrats' affordability messaging are coming together into something really dangerous for Republicans.
Yeah, and it's extraordinary to me that those danger signs have been there for a long time. And this is where Republicans have no control. They do not have control. They give Donald Trump the ability to do everything. They have allowed him to just make it worse and worse and worse. It was bad enough in 2025. They saw what was happening in all those special elections. Here we are in the middle of 2026, and the two issues where you look and saw Donald Trump's numbers plummet once and then plummet again, tariffs and the war, are back big time as they're 4 months from an election. It's extraordinary.
What is the logic behind this? We see Trump now announcing, new tariffs against Canada, a 50% tariff on hockey sticks, a 10 to 20% tariff on countries around the world. Is this really just Trump trying to soothe his ego after being told to give the money back from his other tariffs? Because Republicans are absolutely terrified that this is going to be the issue that defines the midterms.
Yeah, he wants to prove that he was right. And after the Supreme Court threw out those tariffs under a law that was being used illegally, they went back and researched the ways they could use tariffs. And The ones that are coming
Yeah.
are going to be based on labor practices. Think about that. Suddenly, Donald Trump cares about labor practices in other countries. So they're going to say countries that don't have good labor laws, or even if they have good laws and aren't enforcing them, they're going to put a tariff on them. And the law in the US allows them to do it. I mean,
Yeah.
okay, fine. If it makes the labor practices better in other countries, great. But it's pretty cynical. And of course, it's just another way Donald Trump is going to hurt voters.
Yeah. Of all people to talk about labor and treating labor right, Donald Trump, maybe not the first one I would choose. And with Trump going increasingly underwater here, there's also another member of his team that is doing even worse. And that is our fourth story for the day. JD Vance and his diva demands. The knives are out. Vice President back in the headlines. And once again, it's because he's being a baby. This week, he fired a Secret Service agent for leaking some of his travel demands. That includes using a military helicopter to take his kid to golf practice. And if you were expecting JD Vance to deny all of this, you don't know JD Vance. Here he is talking about how great his life is now.
Like, my life is, dude, totally transformed. I don't go to the grocery store anymore. People go to the grocery store for me. Most of my meals, like when I cook a meal, it's like, I love to cook, actually. I'm a big baker. I like to cook for my kids as a special occasion, but I don't have to cook anymore because I've got an army of people who are willing to like cook me my food. My life is so weird. I fly around on a 757, no more TSA lines for me and the kids. It's so weird.
JD Vance, a real man of the people, Mike. And it's unsurprising that Republicans are now ripping him apart for seeming out of touch. How out of touch do you have to be to go and brag about how great your life is? Well, people can't even afford their groceries.
I mean, this one, it's really kind of startling, right? And it's such a gift to Democrats for the future, right? Like if Trump is the gift that keeps on giving now, JD Vance, if he has any chance, needs to show like, I'm not like Trump. I am going to do things very differently, right? I'm going to be very disciplined, and I'm not going to be, spending money on all kinds of things that pertain to myself and my whims and everything else.
Yeah.
Instead, he's doing exactly that. And it is angering not just obviously Democrats, but even Republicans. Donald Trump may have an inoculation against that among a lot of the MAGA base because they love him, but they don't love JD Vance, right? They really don't. And they're angry about a whole bunch of other things with him too. They don't trust him. They really think he's a fraud and a poser and not someone who is the real deal, which they consider Donald Trump, in terms of someone who is a disruptor. I think there's a lot of suspicion of JD Vance that he's with the tech bros and he's their puppet. They're worried about certainly him undermining Trump. There's all this other stuff. So they're not giving him a pass on all of this. They're really going after him. And I think that bodes very well for Democrats, very badly for him.
Yeah, and a lot of Republicans now going public with their criticisms. They could have chosen to ignore the story, but they're doubling down. They're saying JD Vance is out of touch, that he's not a great standard bearer for MAGA in the future. And I think JD Vance not helping his case a lot. We have his response to the Republicans here. Let's play that.
What are you gonna do about it, bro? Yeah? So pull up then.
Now, Mike, Vance, as you mentioned, he was always a weird choice for MAGA. Like, he was picked by Tucker Carlson. He was backed by a lot of venture capital tech guys who wanted a seat at the table if Trump won. Should Vance be worried about all of these sudden public attacks from prominent Republicans?
I think so, because he, again, doesn't have the base defending him in a way that Trump does. And inoculates against any attacks from Republicans in the Senate or the House or other Republican leaders. They'll think nothing of taking down JD Vance. I think a lot of them already, they wish they could take down Trump. They know that he's destroying their party. They are hoping there's going to be a different party. Vance is not going to get the pass to just keep this self-indulgent, horrible, really vitriolic and hateful regime in place, I think he's going to get a lot of pushback.
Yeah, I mean, he is the least populist guy in the world to try and choose to lead a populist movement. I mean, who is the J.D. Vance voter in the GOP?
That's really a good question. I mean,
I have no idea.
Gets to who is J.D. Vance, because that's his other problem, right? He has been so many different people. He once called Donald Trump Hitler, right? So,
yeah.
Now he's Catholic and talking about how he had a conversion, but then he's not behaving like a Catholic, at least not the way Catholics behave, because he's attacking the Pope, and he's actually telling the Pope he should stay out of, anything regarding how people are treated in the world, like immigration or, needing to be fed or needing to get the ability to live. And so it's kind of crazy. He's telling the Pope about theology. I just think there is no core idea of who J.D. Vance is. He needs to figure that out before he runs for president.
Yeah, we had a comment from Tess Tepler here that says the boss's distrust and dislike of Vance, Rubio, and anyone in the establishment leaves an opening for someone like Tucker Carlson. Oh, that's a great thought. But we're wishing J.D. Vance and his brigade of pastry chefs living out there in D.C. like a medieval monarch all the luck in the world convincing all these hungry people in red states that he understands their pain. And as we're on the thought of regrets that some Republicans have had and out-of-touch tech bros who don't know what's going on, our fifth story is Elon Musk's big meltdown this week. He did an interview this week where he had a little bit of a meltdown over his political past. Musk said he regrets getting involved with Doge. He got a bit too excited about Donald Trump and maybe should have just stayed home. Let's hear from Elon himself.
Got a little too involved in politics, got carried away, frankly. So the the goal with this sort of Doge stuff was to try to do something about the deficit, which is massive, where the interest payments exceed the amount of money spent on the Department of War. Like basically, if you add up all the money spent on what is now the Department of War and the and intelligence in the U.S., that is smaller than the interest payments on the debt. So that we need to sort of take a close look at spending and make sure that money is being spent in sensible ways and that it is not wasted or spent on fraudulent activity.
I mean, now that Elon Musk has made all of his money in government contracts, now he says, maybe I should have stayed home. I mean, we try to tell him that, Mike. We spent years trying to tell him to stay home.
I mean, he says I should have focused on my companies, of which were, of course, falling apart and all causing all kinds of angst among shareholders and others, because he was involved in taking apart our government and taking apart programs that feed people across the globe and causing mass starvation and death and taking away people's HIV drugs. The effects will be incalculable what this man did, that he now says, oh, maybe I went too far. It is absolutely abominable.
Yeah. I mean, for him to say, I got too excited about politics. I let it go to my head. I got too involved. When I say that, it means I write some regrettable tweets I delete later. For Elon Musk, it meant that he invested hundreds of millions of dollars, swayed an election, and then cut programs that will be responsible for the deaths of, by some estimates, 1 million children around the world. I mean, he, with that level of power and money, it's stunning that he still thinks this is a game.
Yeah, and, it took him trying to win with his money, right, a seat for a right-wing Republican in Wisconsin in the Wisconsin Supreme Court race. It took for him to fall flat on his face and see the Democrat win by double digits in a state that doesn't have elections by double digits to realize that, like, maybe I can have this impact on politics, or actually maybe it's backfiring big time. Right. Yeah. And I think that really was where he started to pull back and decide that it wasn't working. It took a big loss, right? Because he really thinks he was instrumental in helping Donald Trump. So he thought he could do all of this other stuff as well, and it didn't work.
Yeah. And we haven't seen a lot of Elon Musk lately. Comparatively, he's been keeping his head kind of low. Is it possible, Mike, he's actually learned a little humility, or is he just spending all his time making an AI version of the Odyssey that's apparently supposed to be true, which who's going to tell Elon?
I think he definitely learned that his impact on politics was actually hurting the Republican Party. And not that he really cared or that he listened to people who probably told him that, but the last thing he probably wanted to look like was a loser. So he just pulled out of politics, stayed focused on X and putting all kinds of horrible, disgusting, racist, ugly, nasty, anti-trans crap on there, which he's now saying in this interview, none of that means he's bigoted or racist or anything. He's shocked. He was horrified that anybody could think that of him, even though he's promoted hate and has allowed hate mongers and all kinds of white supremacists and all kinds of people who've actually engaged in criminal activity and sexual violence to be on X and spout all of their garbage.
Well, as Elon Musk devotes his fortune to trying to make a historically accurate version of the Odyssey, which good luck with that. That is the last big story, and that means we've reached the end of the week. I've been your host, Max Burns, and as always, follow Lincoln Square on Substack at Lincoln Square, on YouTube at Lincoln Square Media. You can also follow me on Twitter at @TheMaxBurns. Let me know what you thought of the show. It has been a pleasure to have my guest today, Michelangelo Signorile, here with me. Mike, tell folks at home how they can make their lives better by listening to you more on Sirius.
Max, first off, it's been great. Thank you for having me. Love chatting with you about all this stuff and making sense of it. People, of course, can find me at Sirius XM, 3 to 6 Eastern time on Sirius XM Progress 127. And, of course, the Signorile Report, my Substack, signorile.com, signorile.com.
And we have a comment, General Putnam again, closing us with a great statement on Elon Musk. As they say in ranching country, the boy ain't wired right. All right, friends, that is it for us, but you can find even more videos on Lincoln Square Media YouTube channel. And until next week, remember, JD Vance might hate you, but I love you. So spread the love by watching some more Lincoln Square videos wherever you watch them. Otherwise, Hunter Biden's going to get you.
You give me, you know as well as I do. I mean, are you asking me if Josh Hawley's gay?
Yes.
Are you asking me if Stephen Miller's gay?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I really don't know.
Okay, let me tell you this.
Are you asking me if Speaker Johnson's gay?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know.
We just don't know, folks. See you next week.